3:27. That's what the clock says. Again. I swear, I've watched it tick over to that same mocking number for the last week. 3:27. The wife's asleep. Thankfully, she's got no idea. Wouldn't understand anyway. Probably blame me somehow. Says I'm too hard on him. Too old-fashioned. Maybe she's right. But that doesn't change what I saw. What I found. God, I can still see it. The screen. The words. It's like a goddamn slideshow of horror playing behind my eyelids. I keep replaying the whole day in my head, trying to find some clue. Some sign I missed. Something that would explain anything. But there's nothing. Just a normal Tuesday. Until it wasn't. I know I shouldn't be up here, dwelling on it. I should be sleeping. Trying to get some rest. But how can I? How can I sleep knowing what I know? Knowing what my son, what he might be going through. It's like a weight in my chest, crushing me. A slow burn of anger. Shame, and a bone-deep fear I can't shake. And the worst part? The absolute worst part is, I don't know what to do. I'm frozen, paralyzed by the sheer wrongness of it all. I keep running scenarios in my head, and every single one ends badly. It was just a normal Tuesday, like any other. Dinner, homework, the usual arguments about screen time. He was glued to that damn tablet again, lost in some online world. Just one more level, Dad. Please. The whiny voice, the pleading eyes. I've heard it all before. He was supposed to be doing his chores, emptying the dishwasher, taking out the trash. Simple stuff. But no, he was busy saving the world. That's what he said anyway. Sarcasm. Dripping from every word. I told him, now, Michael. Chores first, then you can play. He mumbled something under his breath. Something about me not understanding. God, I hate that phrase. That's when I snapped. I reached over, quick as lightning, and snatched the tablet right out of his hands. Mid-game, he yelped, a sound of pure outrage. Dad, what the hell? I told him. My voice raised a little. You're way over your time limit, and you haven't done your chores. Enough is enough. He started to argue, but I cut him off. Go to your chores. Now. He stomped off, muttering about how unfair I was. And that's when I made the mistake. The one that changed everything. Instead of just putting the tablet down, I looked at it. I told myself I was just checking the time, making sure he wasn't sneaking in extra minutes. Being a responsible parent. Enforcing the rules. That's what I told myself. But honestly, there was more to it than that. A nagging feeling. A sense that I didn't really know what he was doing on that thing. He's always been a bit withdrawn. Quiet. Spends hours locked in his room. Headphones on, lost in that digital world. I know. All kids are like that these days. But still, there was something. A flicker in his eyes when I asked him about his games. A defensiveness when I tried to talk about online safety. So, yeah, I was checking the time. But I was also snooping. Just a little. To see what he was really up to. To make sure he wasn't getting into anything he shouldn't be. I told myself it was for his own good. That I had a right to know. That a responsible parent would do the same. And maybe I was right. Maybe I was just trying to protect him. But whatever the reason, I did it. I unlocked the tablet, swiped through the open apps, and that's when I saw it. The one thing that made my blood run cold. The open tab that shattered everything. It wasn't porn. Not exactly. At least, not what I expected. No blatant images, no flashing videos. It was different. The tab was open to some kind of chat site. A weird, amateurish-looking thing, with a name I didn't recognize. Something like Pixel Pals or Digital Buddies, I can't quite remember. The details are fuzzy now, blocked out by the sheer wrongness of it all. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Just a wall of text. Jumbled messages, usernames I didn't recognize. It looked like some kind of group chat, but the language, it was strange. There were references to games I'd never heard of, inside jokes I didn't get, emojis I couldn't decipher. It felt like I'd stumbled into a conversation in a foreign language. I scrolled up, trying to make sense of it, trying to find some context. But the more I read, the more confused I became, the more uneasy I felt. It was like finding a half-finished puzzle with pieces that didn't quite fit. Something was off, terribly off. And then I saw his username, clear as day, right there in the middle of the screen. And that's when the confusion turned to ice-cold dread. I started scrolling back further, reading the conversations, skimming it first, then slower, more deliberately, trying to understand the context, the relationships. It was like trying to decipher a code. Little by little, pieces started to fall into place. Small things, seemingly innocent on their own, but together, they painted a disturbing picture. There were frequent mentions of feeling lonely, of not having many friends at school. Talk about being different, about not fitting in. My heart clenched. I knew he struggled with that, but I didn't realize. It was this bad. And then there were the other messages. Interactions with one particular user. Someone with a generic, androgynous username. Something like GamerGirl22 or PixelMaster85. The tone was overly friendly. A little too interested. Lots of compliments, lots of probing questions. How was your day, Michael? Are you feeling okay? You seemed a little down yesterday. Don't let those bullies get you down. You're special. Subtle things. At first glance, almost harmless. But the more I read, the more my stomach churned. The more I felt like I was intruding on something predatory. Something deeply wrong. This Pixelmaster 85. God, just thinking about it makes my skin crawl. I couldn't tell if it was a kid, an adult pretending to be a kid, or just some sicko hiding behind a keyboard. That's the terrifying part. The ambiguity. Their profile picture was just a generic avatar, a cartoon wizard, I think. No identifying information. Nothing to suggest their age or gender. They could be anyone. And the language they used, it was subtle. Not outright sexual, not explicitly threatening, but manipulative. Definitely manipulative. They showered Michael with praise. Told him he was talented, special, unique. Said he had a beautiful mind. Things a lonely kid wants to hear. Things I probably should have been saying more often. They asked leading questions, trying to get him to open up about his feelings, his insecurities, about his relationship with his parents. With me, they used phrases like, I understand you, and you can tell me anything. Classic grooming tactics, I realize now. But at the time, I was just staring at the screen, dumbfounded, frozen. There was one message that really stood out. Don't let anyone tell you what to do. Michael, you're in control of your own happiness. It was like a little seed of rebellion planted right there in his mind. And I had no idea. Now, I can't stop thinking about all the signs I missed. The subtle shifts in his behavior. The way he'd flinch when I tried to hug him. The excuses he'd make to avoid family dinners. Remember that time he asked for a new gaming headset with a built-in microphone? I just thought he wanted to communicate better with his online friends. Now I wonder if it was so he could talk to them without us overhearing. And the increased secrecy. The way he'd quickly minimize his screen whenever I walked into the room. I chalked it up to teenage angst, to needing his privacy. God, I was so stupid. There was even that one time I saw him crying in his room. He said he was just frustrated with a game. I patted him on the back, told him to shake it off, and left him alone. Now, I can't help but wonder if it was something else entirely. These seemingly innocent moments, they're all tainted now, poisoned by this new knowledge. They replay in my head like a broken record, each one a fresh wave of guilt and regret. I keep asking myself, how could I have been so blind? How could I have missed these obvious warning signs? Was I too busy? Too distracted? Too unwilling to see what was right in front of me? And here's the thing I'm most ashamed of. I didn't do anything. Not right away. I just stood there, frozen. The tablet in my hand, the chat logs burning into my brain. He was still in his room, doing his chores. I could hear him slamming the dishwasher door, muttering to himself. I should have gone in there. I should have confronted him. Asked him about Pixel Master 85. About what they talked about. About how he was feeling. But I couldn't. I was paralyzed by fear. Fear of what he might say. Fear of what I might find out. Fear of damaging our relationship beyond repair. What if he denied everything? What if he clammed up? What if he ran away? What if this was just the tip of the iceberg? So, I did nothing. I closed the tablet, put it back on his desk, and walked away, pretending I hadn't seen anything, hoping it would all just disappear. Cowardly, I know. Pathetic, even. But in that moment, I couldn't think of anything else to do. I was completely overwhelmed, utterly helpless. And that inaction, that's what haunts me the most. That's the mistake I can never take back. As I walked out of his room, a wave of nausea washed over me. It wasn't just a feeling of unease. It was a deep, visceral revulsion. My stomach churned, my head swam, and I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. I stumbled into the bathroom and just barely made it to the toilet before I started dry heaving. Nothing came up, just a painful retching that left me gasping for air. It was like my body was rejecting what I had just seen, like it was physically impossible for me to process the horror of it all. The feeling lingered for hours. A knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. A constant reminder of the violation I had witnessed. The violation of my son's innocence. Even now, thinking about it, I can feel that same wave of nausea creeping back. It's a physical manifestation of my fear, my guilt, my disgust. I know it sounds dramatic, but it's the truth. What I found on that tablet, it didn't just shock me. It made me physically sick. It made me question everything I thought I knew about my son, about my family, about myself. And that's a feeling I don't think I'll ever be able to shake. Maybe I should have called the police. Maybe I should have contacted some kind of online safety expert. Maybe I should have told my wife. But I didn't. I did none of those things. And the reason is simple. Fear. I was afraid of what I might uncover. What if this Pixel Master 85 had already done something? What if Michael was already deeply involved in something dangerous? Something I couldn't pull him out of? I was afraid of how he would react. Would he shut down? Would he become angry and defensive? Would he hate me for invading his privacy? And most of all, I was afraid of destroying our relationship. We haven't always had the easiest time connecting. He's always been a bit distant, a bit reserved. I didn't want to push him further away. I know it sounds ridiculous. To protect our relationship by ignoring a potential threat to his safety, but that's what I was thinking. That somehow, by pretending nothing had happened, I could keep everything from falling apart. I was wrong, of course. Dead wrong. Because things have fallen apart. They just did it silently. In the dark. And now, I don't know how to put them back together. Whose fault is this? That's the question that keeps circling in my head. And the answer, it always comes back to me. I should have been more involved. More attentive. More aware of what was going on in his life. I let him drift. thinking he was just being a normal teenager. I gave him too much space, too much freedom. I bought him that tablet in the first place. Thought it would be a good way for him to connect with his friends, to learn new things. I never considered the dangers. I never imagined it could become a gateway to something like this. Maybe if I had spent more time talking to him, listening to him, he wouldn't have been so vulnerable. Maybe if I had created a stronger connection, he wouldn't have sought validation from strangers online. God, I feel like such a failure. A complete and utter failure as a father. I was supposed to protect him, to guide him, to keep him safe. And I failed. Miserably. I enabled this. I created the conditions that allowed this to happen. And now I have to live with the consequences. The guilt is crushing. The shame is unbearable. I don't know how I'm going to face him in the morning. Knowing what I know. Knowing what I've allowed to happen. It's not just my fault, though. I have to admit that. There are other factors at play here. Things beyond my control. He's always struggled to make friends. He's a bit awkward. A bit shy. He doesn't quite fit in with the other kids. And that's gotten worse since we moved here last year. New school, new town, new everything. He's been feeling lost and isolated. And then there's the internet itself. This constant barrage of information, of influences, of garbage. It's hard to shield him from it all. Especially when he spends so much time online. I've tried to talk to him about online safety. About the dangers of talking to strangers. But I don't think he really listened. I don't think he really understood. And maybe that's because I didn't understand either. I grew up in a different world. A world without social media, without online predators. Without this constant pressure to conform to some idealized image. This isn't just a personal failing. It's a societal problem. Kids are more vulnerable than ever. They're spending more time online. Less time connecting with real people. And they're being targeted by people who know exactly how to exploit their vulnerabilities. So, yeah, I blame myself. But I also blame the world we live in. A world that's become increasingly dangerous for our kids. A world that I don't fully understand. But ultimately, I have to own my part in this. I have to admit that I wasn't the parent he needed. I was too trusting, too naive, too willing to believe that everything was okay. I thought I was giving him space to grow, to develop his own identity. But really, I was just neglecting him. I was letting him drift without a rudder. I'm not tech savvy. I'm not fluent in the language of the internet. I struggle to understand the online world he inhabits. And I let that become an excuse for not trying harder. I was intimidated by his knowledge, by his comfort with technology. I let him take the lead, assuming he knew what he was doing. I never stopped to consider that he might be vulnerable, that he might be in over his head. I was too focused on my own problems, on my own career, on my own life. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't seeing the signs. And now it's too late. The damage is done. I can't go back and change things. I can only try to pick up the pieces and move forward. But I'll never forgive myself for being so blind. For being so ill-equipped to protect my own son. The digital world moved faster than I could, and he paid the price. And now, here I am. 32. Still awake. Still replaying the same horrific scene in my head. Still paralyzed by indecision. I don't know what to do. I can't keep ignoring this. I can't just pretend everything is okay. But I'm terrified of making things worse. Should I confront him? Should I talk to my wife? Should I seek professional help? I've been Googling online grooming and child exploitation for hours, but every article just makes me feel more helpless. Every creak of the house makes me jump. Every time I hear him cough in his room, I imagine him typing messages to Pixelmaster 85. I'm trapped in a constant state of anxiety. I keep trying to picture what tomorrow will look like, what I'll say to him, how I'll react. But all I see is a blank wall, a future filled with uncertainty and fear. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells, afraid to make a wrong move, afraid to shatter the fragile peace that still exists between us. But I know I can't stay in this limbo forever. I have to do something. I have to find a way to protect him, but I just don't know how. It's almost 4 now. Dawn's creeping in, painting the sky a pale, sickly gray. Another sleepless night almost over, and I'm no closer to finding a solution. I know things can't go back to the way they were. That much is clear. The innocence is gone. The trust is shattered. And I don't know if we can ever truly recover from this. Even if I do manage to confront him, even if I do manage to get him away from Pixelmaster 85, the damage is already done. He's been exposed to something toxic, something that's changed him. And I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to help him heal. I don't even know if he wants to be helped. Maybe this is just the beginning of a long, painful journey. A journey filled with therapy, with anger, with resentment. A journey that will test our relationship in ways I can't even imagine. But I have to try. I have to do something. Even if it's the wrong thing. Because I can't live with this guilt. I can't live with this fear. I owe it to him to try. To be the father he needs, even if I don't know how. Even if it breaks both our hearts. Because the alternative is unthinkable. And that's what scares me the most. The unthinkable.